Being an intermediate is a tricky place to be as a surfer. You've already had that sudden and really fast progression from beginner level to where you are now. You're entering more complex surfing lineups for the first time. You're trying to perform more advanced maneuvers. There's just so many challenges and like new experiences. But at the same time, being an intermediate is also really exciting. In this video, we're going to explore some of the best intermediate surf destinations in the world. But before we dive into such places, what actually is an intermediate surfer? For me, an intermediate surfer is somebody who can turn up at a spot they're familiar with, paddle out comfortably by themselves, be able to read waves, take off on both lefts and rights, be able to trim across the wave and be able to identify where the waves are breaking and make like good decisions based on where to sit. And I guess at the upper end of the intermediate level, you're starting to perform like basic advanced maneuvers such as like floaters, cutbacks, re-entries, and starting to push yourself into slightly bigger waves. I also think it is where you're starting to think about stepping down from the foamy or the mid-length and onto a board where you can start performing those more advanced maneuvers. So I think those things kind of encompass what an intermediate surfer is. So now we've got an idea of what an intermediate actually is. What makes a good intermediate destination? First up, you've got the waves. One of the main things is that you want some predictability. Now, most of us, we learn on beach breaks, which are often shifty and quite hard to read. You've got waves breaking in like different places. But if you want to start, I guess, getting that repetition and practice in, you want to kind of have something more predictable. So point breaks and reef breaks that allow for that repetition, you know, waves that break in the same way over and over again. So that's going to allow you to practice the things you want to practice. So every time you catch a wave, you can think, oh, okay, the wave's going to do this. It's not going to suddenly close out or shift to a different direction. When you do this, you're also starting to enter some more complex surfing lineups, point breaks and reef breaks, especially at some of these top destinations. They kind of come with a hierarchy, and it's really important as an intermediate to know how to navigate these lineups. You kind of want to be pushing yourself into those points and reefs, but if the waves do get really big or something happens that knocks your confidence, you also want to be able to, I guess, retreat back to a beach break. You want to have somewhere where you can feel a bit more comfortable, go back to what you were familiar with. A lot of these breaks that are just normal, like beginner to intermediate spots, can on bigger days transform into like world-class perfect waves. You know, as an intermediate, if you're just going to this spot you've been surfing every day, but then all of a sudden it's like 10 times more crowded, you've got people ripping like around you, it's all of a sudden really intimidating, and it just changes the whole dynamic. I think the vibe of a place is also really important as an intermediate. Like I said before, you're entering those lineups for the first time, which are already tricky to navigate. Trying to figure out a new lineup, you're trying to work on a new maneuver, you might also be getting used to a new board. The last thing you want is an angry local coming to punch you or screaming swear words at you.
You're going right now.
I'm going right now.
Okay, you fuck off now.
To be honest, this is actually where I see the most conflict in the water, in where like an intermediate surfer has kind of been so focused on trying to catch a wave and doing everything right that they just forget to look and drop in on a more advanced surfer who then gets really angry and shouts at them and tells them to go in and whatever. It's unfortunate, it's just kind of part of the game, but it takes a long time to develop that sort of spatial and lineup awareness. I think also having access to like good coaches and camps and that kind of like surf improvement infrastructure is really important. You know, I'd recommend just surfing as much as possible as an intermediate. The more time you can put into the water, the more different conditions you're exposing yourself to, the more reference points you're going to get for all of these different waves and ways things happen in the lineups and the way waves break. The more you can do that, the better. That said, it definitely pays to get some coaching now and again. Now, it doesn't have to be like every session. In fact, I'd advise against that. Every week or every few weeks or whenever you go on a trip. Some video analysis is epic as well, where you can look at your surfing, and it's the best way you can improve. So now we've established some of those criteria, let's dive into the best destinations. First up, we've got Sri Lanka. As an intermediate, I think it's somewhere that is custom made for you. Not only does it have that epic variety and mix of different surf spots, it's got a tropical climate, wicked culture, low cost of living, and for the most part the waves are pretty easy to surf and pretty mellow. Most of the spots kind of walk the line between that like upper end intermediate level to the lower end advanced levels. Between the more premier breaks in the country, there's loads of different beach breaks and places that you can retreat to and surf, you know, if you're not feeling going into those lineups. The swells in Sri Lanka also come from a pretty long way away. Storms that reach Sri Lanka aren't like big pulsing storms sitting just off the coast in, say, like Hawaii or West Oz. As well, the vibes in Sri Lanka for the most part are pretty mellow. It's full of like easygoing locals, intermediates, you know, just kind of having fun, improving their surfing. On the East Coast, check out Aragon Bay. You've got these dreamy right-hand point breaks. The main point does get super crowded, but it's a really fun, pretty mellow wave to surf. It's a great place to introduce yourself into a more serious surfing lineup. Further south, you've got the beach town of Midigama. Now, Midigama has got a number of different waves. There's two A-frame reefs called Coconuts and Plantations. They can be really fun. It offers you both lefts and rights. It's not super powerful, but it's powerful enough to be able to start doing turns. And just across the channel from there, you've got Rams Right. Now, Rams is a pretty shallow, like hollow little barrel, but as far as like hollow barrels go, it's a pretty mellow wave. Rams can be a great place to start pushing yourself into barrels and, you know, just getting a bit of a taste of what some heavier waves might feel like. All across Sri Lanka, you've got heaps of different accommodation options, from some epic surf camps, surf hostels, villas. I always use booking.com or Hostelworld to book my accommodation wherever I go in the world. I'll leave a link to some of the best hostels and camps down in the description. Next up, we've got the Maldives. Now, the Maldives are well established as a world-class surf destination, and across the island, you've got any number of world-class waves. Now, the Maldives are pretty epic for advanced surfers, intermediates. There's even some beginner-friendly spots, so these are some like pretty amazing islands that have a bit of something for everyone. The reason I think the Maldives are so great for intermediates is that the spots in the Maldives break with that same perfectness and predictability of, say, Fiji or the Mentawais, just without so much power. But because kind of the reefs kind of run out to sea at more of an angle like this compared to in the Ments or in Fiji, where it's more like this, you've got like more of a drop off. So the waves have come out of deep ocean and unload straight onto the reef. The Maldives is slightly more angled, so it's a bit more gradual. So that seabed just makes for a generally mellower wave. So across the island, there's so many different waves. You've got famous waves like Chickens, Pasta Point, Lohis, Cokes, Honkies, all these amazing waves. There's left, right, barrels, waves for turns. Unfortunately, a lot of the waves in the Maldives are privatized. To surf some of them, you're gonna have to stay at designated camps who somehow own the rights to a reef. Not something I really agree with, but anyway, that's what you've got to do if you want to surf some of these waves. You've got stunning crystal clear water, perfect coral reefs, blue skies, tropical weather, palm trees. You know, it's the quintessential like tropical destination. I mean, come on, it's the Maldives, like the whole place is a postcard. Next up, we've got Portugal. Now, Portugal is an epic surf destination for any ability. There's just so many waves in Portugal, it's insane. From big wave spots like Nazaré to world-class barreling freight trains like Coxas and Super Tubos. But death slabs and barrels aside, as an intermediate, there's also some wicked places to check out. The main surf towns of Peniche and Ericeira both have some wicked spots to accommodate intermediates. In Peniche, check out Baleal. Now, Baleal is wicked for intermediates because it's a long crescent-shaped bay. The middle of the beach cops like the full brunt of the swell, but as you kind of bend away into the corners, the swell kind of becomes more diluted. It gets a bit more sheltered. Waves always change here depending on the banks, but no matter what the conditions, there's always going to be something you can surf in these corners. In Ericeira, you've got loads of different waves. Check out Ribeira de Lash. It's a really long, like, I guess, fat right-hander. But if you're starting to surf point breaks for the first time and starting to learn how to do turns, it's a really long wave that gives you the chance to be up and riding for a long time, and a wave that's not scary or intimidating and kind of allows you to try like cutbacks and floaters without too much consequence. The reef is nice and flat as well, and you'll see a lot of coaches, you know, taking people out to experience unbroken waves for the first time as well. In all major surf towns across Portugal, you've got heaps of places to stay. If you're in Peniche, check out my friend's surf lodge, Peniche Surf Lodge. Again, check out Hostel World and Booking.com for the cheapest stays, and I'll leave the links to some of the best ones down below. Next up, we've got Morocco. Now, Morocco in Northwest Africa is a wicked surf destination. It's home to world-class right-hand point breaks, the most famous of them being Anchor Point in Tagazout. Anchor's kind of put Moroccan surfing on the map. It's a really fun, kind of mellowish right-hand point, but there's also some beaches. There's also really unique culture, amazing food. It's pretty cheap, especially if you're coming from Europe. Tagazout has got many different surf camps and hostels. Check out some of these on Hostel World. Great places to stay right in the heart of Tagazout, and you'll be able to walk out to Anchor Point as well as some of the other breaks closer to town. If you prefer your surf experience to be all wrapped up into one package, check out booksurfcamps.com. They've got surf camp packages for intermediates throughout, well, the whole world, but they've got some epic ones in Morocco. So if you're somebody who wants to just make one booking and have everything included, like your accommodation, your coaching, your equipment, check out Book Surf Camps, and again, I'll leave the link in the description. Next up, we've got Noosa Heads in Australia. So Noosa in Queensland is home to some dreamy right-hand point breaks. First up, you've got Main Beach, which is an epic place for mal riders and longboarders. Then as you move up through the national park, you've got Johnson's and Boiling Pot, all just long right-hand point breaks, and if you time it with a bit of a cyclone swell or a big east coast low, you can ride waves all the way from Boiling Pot to Main Beach if you're lucky. I mean, the waves get super crowded here, it's pretty crazy. Around the next headland, you've got Tea Tree Bay, which is a beautiful little bay. It's a right-hand double up point break. On small days, you've just got dreamy little rights, epic for longboarding. On bigger days, it becomes into a more like spinny, like double up. You can get little barrels, you can rip into turns. It's just a pretty sick wave all round. And again, although it gets crowded at Tea Tree, it's a good place to sort of sample a right-hand point for the first time. Then in and around the area, there's a number of beach breaks. You've got A Bay, Sunshine Beach, Sunrise Beach, all can have like fun left and right peaks. You've just got to head out and scope out the banks. Next up, we've got Indonesia. Now, Indonesia is an absolutely huge country, just so many different waves. It's insane. You've got left, right, barrels, slabs, beaches, just there's more waves in Indonesia than you could ever hope to surf in one lifetime. As an intermediate, obviously you've got Bali, which is super famous and definitely a bit crowded, but I'd recommend checking out some of the points on the Bukit. You've got like Impossibles, being in Uluwatu maybe on a small day. You can check out Keramas again on a small day. The beach breaks in and around Canggu, like Echo Beach. Otherwise, different islands have got plenty of other waves. I think Kuta Lombok has got a lot of different reef breaks on offer. I'm going to try and make an intermediate guide to Indonesia as well at some point, so stay tuned for that. Last but not least, we've got Costa Rica. Now, Costa Rica is one of the most popular destinations in Central America, and it's just a wicked place to be a surfer of any level. You've got tropical climate, beautiful nature and wildlife. So most of the time you're surfing beach breaks here. I think Costa Rica's so good because it can be really fun for advanced surfers to surf in a way where you can just try like airs and big turns and not have the consequence of like a shallow reef or like a really powerful sandbank. And so you've just got the fun factor, whereas that very same lineup for an intermediate can be somewhere to like push yourself and learn new things without having it, be too intimidating, if that makes sense. Check out places like Santa Teresa, Dominical, Playa Jaco, Tamarindo. All of these main surf towns have got heaps of fun waves for intermediates. Across Costa Rica, again, there's loads of wicked surf camps and hostels. I'll leave the link to some of the best ones down in the description, either on Hostel World, Booking.com. So I hope you've enjoyed this breakdown. Any questions and comments, please let me know below and I'll try my best to help you. Please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next episode.